Hello Year 4, this is Miss Baker. I hope you had a really nice half term. So, this is going to be your art lesson this week. So we're going to continue along the lines of pop art. And this week we're going to be starting a little bit of a new project. So, you're going to continue to develop your knowledge of pop art. You're going to learn about a new collage artist, and you're going to learn about the process of tracing. So here on the screen here, we've got an artist called Michel Keck. And you can see that Michel Keck uses lots of colours associated with pop art, so bold, bright colours. She also incorporates pop art patterns into her work. You can see there's stripes, there's checks, and like I said, she uses very bold colours. She also includes collage within her work as well. So if we look down here, this is a little description of collage. So it's an artistic process, and it's gluing and assembling various pieces of materials onto a flat surface. So you can see here that Michel Keck actually glues down pieces of string, and she also glues down magazine cuttings. And if we look up to this one in this corner here, this image, you can see that she's actually got newspaper there and what looks like graph paper. So she creates these vibrant images using pop art patterns, pop art colours and collage techniques. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to trace out a template. Now I've provided 2 templates here, and I will attach these to the Firefly task for you. And you may wish to print them off and then trace them. Or alternatively, I don't mind if you find an image of a dog that you really like and you decide to draw that freehand or trace it. But I'm going to begin by showing you how to trace. So girls and boys, let's just have a little look at the success criteria for this project. What we need to do is, as always, try our best, but also show care and accuracy when we're tracing. And then when we move on to adding our pop art patterns and colours and our collage materials, we need to show also a lot of accuracy and precision. Right, girls and boys, so I've chosen this image of the little chihuahua here in front of me, and I'm going to have a go at tracing this. So you can do the same. You can print this off and you can have a go of the process of tracing. Some of you may have done tracing before, but for some of you this will be the first time. Now, this is actually tracing paper here that I have, but you can also use baking tray paper or grease proof paper, and a parent or guardian may have some of that in the house, particularly if they like doing baking. And if not, you can get it in any local supermarkets. So, but I'm actually using real tracing paper here, but it's the same thing. Yours may come at as more of a neutral tone or a light brown colour, and that's fine. It just needs to be this consistency so you can see through it. So I've placed it, as you can see, over the top of my chihuahua. Okay, and then what I'm also using is I'm using a little bit of masking tape. You could use blue tack or sellotape, and I'm just going to use a little bit of that. You can rip it in half to secure, first of all, the image to the surface that you're working on. It won't damage the surface because masking tape's quite sensitive, so it won't damage the table. And what you could always do is place it on top of a sketchbook or a board. And then I'm just going to move the camera slightly so you can see slightly better. So that piece of paper is now attached to the table. And then what we do is we place the tracing paper over the top, or greaseproof paper, whatever you have. And then we attach that then also to the table. So now when I go like this, the tracing paper doesn't move and the paper underneath doesn't move. Make sure I've got a really sharp pencil because this image is quite detailed. If you think that image is going to be a little bit too complicated for you to draw or trace, then you can always use that one, which I've also attached to the task. Or like I said, you might have your own pet or find an image of a dog that you really would like to have a go at drawing. So we'll continue with our tracing now. So now it's on top. This is a 3-stage process. So what I do is I usually put a little 1 in the corner so I know that this is the first time that I'm tracing. And then once I'm ready, I can begin. And I usually start at one point and I'll put a little dot there. And so that I know by the time that I've drawn all the way around here and back to here, I don't get confused about what I've actually drawn over. So as you can see, I'm pressing with a medium type of pressure over the top of my chihuahua drawing. And then I'm not doing one continuous line, I'm doing small little lines, and this means that my drawing is going to be a little bit more accurate. So I'm going to take my time. This week, all that we're doing is we're going to be tracing our images and maybe starting to think about what patterns and what collage materials we'll use on our dogs. But we won't get on to colour and we won't get on to the actual process of collage this week. So I want you to take your time. And not all of these lines are going to be straight. Some of them are going to be pointy because we're trying to capture the fur on the chihuahua. So I've now drawn the outline on this side. As you can see, if I lift it up slightly, there we go, you can see that I've drawn that. Okay, so every now and again I would check. Okay. Right then, year 4. So what you can see now is I've skipped ahead a little bit and I've managed to draw all the way over the top of my image. And what I can do is I can lift this up without moving the image or the tracing paper, and I can check that I've drawn everything, that I haven't missed anything out, and I'm happy with that now. So that's the first stage of tracing. You've traced on one side. So then what you have to do is you've got to trace on the other side. So now I'm going to lift up my masking tape. As you can see, as promised, it doesn't rip the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this out the way for now. and I'm just going to work on the back of a plain piece of paper. Now, that is my Chihuahua facing the correct way, but if I was to trace over the top here now, nothing would come through because there's no pencil on this side. So that's why we have to flip it. And then, so I don't get confused, I put a little 2 in the corner here, because I know this is the second trace that I'm doing, and I can see that the 1 is back to front, so I know that I'm doing this the correct way. And then what I do is, you'll probably by now need to give your pencil a little bit of a sharpen. So just move these bits out of the way. So I'm going to sharpen my pencil. And it doesn't matter if the paper moves around now, because I'm not actually tracing onto this. I'm just using this as a rough piece of paper. So I can move this any way that I like. You will get pencil coming through, but that's fine. So I'm going to start again. I'll probably make a little point here with my pencil. And I'm going to start tracing and drawing over the top of these lines in this corner. And I've made a mark there, so I know that by the time I get all the way around, I won't have missed anything out. So as you can see, all I'm doing now is drawing carefully over the top of the lines that I've already drawn. It's important to make sure that you are drawing over all of the lines. Otherwise, when you come to tracing this onto a plain piece of paper, you'll miss out the details. So that's why I do a section at a time, so I don't get confused about what I've drawn over and what I haven't. So I'm taking my time, making sure that I've captured all these details. And like I said, if you feel that this drawing might be a little bit complicated, you can use the other drawing of the dog, because that one's a little less complicated. But it's entirely up to you. So I've done that ear, and you can tell that I've traced that ear because that's a lot darker than the rest of the image. Okay, and then I'm going to move over to this second ear here. Again, taking my time, because if you rush, you might miss out some detail. Then drawing over all of the inside of the ear, all of the details on the inside. It doesn't even matter if you do go over some of your lines by accident, that's fine. Better to be safe than sorry. So now I know that I've done both of those ears, and as you can tell, they're a lot darker. So that's a good indication that you've gone over them. And then you can go over this side too. Right, okay, so now I've actually traced over all of this side. So I now have the image of my dog on both sides of the tracing paper. So that was it was originally drawn this way, and then I've drawn over the back of it this way. This is my second side now. Okay, and what you'll have noticed is as you've been moving the paper around and drawing over it, you may have got some marks on this piece of scrap paper. That's fine. Then what you're going to do is you're going to find a nice quality piece of paper. Here I've got some quite thick sketchbook paper. And then we want to return our dog to the original way round. So originally my little Chihuahua was this way around. So you can see it's back to front. So we've got to turn it back to the original, and that's why we put 1 there. Okay, so it's got to go back to 1. And then what we do is we can use our masking tape. You can reuse it as many times as you like. And we're going to stick our good quality paper down to the surface. And then we are then going to get another little bit of masking tape. You could use blue tack, just make sure you're not working on a really posh table. Make sure that whatever surface you're working on, that your parents or guardians don't mind you using some masking tape. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to position the Chihuahua on the paper, and I'm going to get a bit of my masking tape, and I'm going to make sure that the masking tape attaches the tracing paper to the table too, like so. So now when we lift this up, this paper's not going to move, and this tracing paper's not going to move out of position either. And then what we're going to do, I'm just going to move my camera so you can see a bit better. Then finally what we're going to do is sharpen our pencil. Again, because it will be blunt by this point. And then we are working over the top of this line. So this is actually, as I said before, this is going to be the 3rd trace. So you can even put a little 3 here. So you know this is the 3rd time. And then you are drawing over the top of this line yet again. So it's quite a lengthy process, but this time it's a little easier because what you can do is you can lift it up and you can see, yes, I've done that section. So you know that you can keep on going. And you don't even have to be quite as precise with your lines this time. What some people like to do, but it can become a little bit messy, so I'd be careful, is some people just like to almost shade over those lines, like so. But I wouldn't advise going across it completely like that with your pencil, because it can become very messy. And you need to make sure that your paper, your tracing paper, does not move out of position. So if in doubt, just draw over the line. But I don't mind if you do almost like a little bit of shading to speed things up slightly. So I'm just going to now check that that ear has been transferred onto the paper. And you can see it has. And some areas look a little lighter than others. For example, that bit's missed out, but that's fine because the paper's in the exact same position. All you need to do is press a little bit harder and then lift it up again. And you can see now it has transferred properly. So I would do a little section at a time. And then keep checking that it's transferring over. And the only reason it wouldn't transfer over is if A, you're not pressing quite hard enough, or B, you missed it out in one of the stages. But yeah, keep on checking at every point. And if you need to, go back over an area. And if you do miss anything out, I wouldn't worry, because you could always draw it freehand. So with the eye there, I've just drawn over the whole thing. And you can see that it is there. It's quite faint, but it is there. So if it is quite faint, just press a little harder. And then if you look at it now, yeah, you can see it completely. Right then, boys and girls, as you can see now, I've traced over the top of my chihuahua. So when I lift this up, you can see it reveals the line drawing that we've done. Okay, if any areas you feel like, oh, they're a little bit faint or I can't see them very well, like I said, because you've positioned this paper in place with masking tape and this paper, it doesn't matter, you can just lift it up as often as you want and place it back down. And then this area over here is just a little bit faint, so I'm just pressing a little bit more on that, and now I can see it very clearly. And again, this area over here, so I'm just pressing down a little darker, and maybe up here slightly. And actually over the eyes a little bit, they're a little bit faint. Okay, so then once you're happy with that, you can remove that tracing paper and put it to one side. And you can see when we compare them, both images, they're very similar. And that's because I've taken a lot of time and care to trace properly. So that's where you need to get up to. And as I said before, if you think that that one's a little bit too complicated, choose this one. Now, once you have drawn that and you're happy with it, next week we're going to start thinking about what patterns to apply to different areas and what colours we're going to apply and what collage materials. So in preparation for next week, what you might start to do is label some of these areas. So maybe in the ear here, what I would like to eventually do is some stripes. So you can start to plan out, right, I'm going to have some stripes in this ear. So use your ruler and then you can measure 1/2 centimetre and draw a line, maybe another 1/2 centimetre and draw a line. And continue. So I've just plotted my little 1/2 centimetres there. Taking time to draw my lines so that they're nice and straight. Okay, I might add one more to the top. So that's where I'll have my striped pattern. But maybe actually over this gap here, I might have some collage material. So it might be a magazine cutout. So what I'm going to do is put a little C there so I can remind myself next week that's what I want to do. And in the meantime, I can also think about collecting collage materials. I might like to add a little bit of string around the nose. So where it's got the nose here, I'm just going to put maybe a C because I'm going to collage string. So I'm going to make a little note to myself. Or you may decide to actually just write string in that area. And then might decide to apply a pattern to another area. So it could be that next lesson I'm going to have some pointillism over here, so little dots. So I could start to think about, well, how will I do that? Well, I'll get a pen lid. And then you might decide to draw some pointillism in either this area or this area down here. So I think I'm going to go for this area. So I'm going to draw a little line, roughly following the shape of the Charlie's jacket here. So it kind of curves. So I'm going to have a line that's curving there, and maybe one underneath. So that's running parallel with that line. And then I'm going to have my pointillism pattern in that space. But I'm only going to start drawing it because we've done quite a lot already this week. So that's probably enough for this lesson. But you can certainly start to think about what kind of patterns and what collage materials you'd like to use in the different sections. Okay, so look forward to speaking to you all again. Thank you very much, and that's the end of today's lesson.